Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Law Talk, a public service of the Southwest Louisiana Law Center and CBS Lake Charles. From the courtrooms of Calcasieu
to the marshes of Cameron Parish of Jonathan Law Dog Fontenot.
I'm Mark, the Director Judson. I think I did a variation on our introduction just then. Can we live with that?
It was an audible.
It was an audible.
It passed.
Football season is here. We can call an audible now. We can react. We can play off
a lot of football terms.
Yeah, the football terms. We don't have any today, but just warning everybody that they're coming. All right, so it's Law Talk where we field your legal questions. So today's legal question is bank account, small amount of money in it, relatively speaking. Do we have to do a full succession to inherit that from a deceased bank account deposit?
You mean a dead person has a bank account?
Dead person, somebody, well, they used to be alive, obviously. They died. They had a bank account like most people do. But, you know, it's like, a relatively small amount of, and that's the only asset. Do we have to go to all the trouble and expense to hire a lawyer and do a succession?
I hope not.
Well, let's hope not either. But there is one good thing to know, and that is revised statute 6:315.1. It's basically a affidavit for a small bank account, is what I call it. And so if the depositor dies intestate means?
No will.
Right. So if the depositor dies and has no will, and they have this magic minimal amount of money, which is, you remember that?
No.
It's $20,000.
Okay.
To me, that's a large amount of money, but a lot of people. Anyway, if it's under $20,000, then the heirs, a surviving spouse or heir, can submit an affidavit to the bank saying that that's the only asset, we're the only heirs, please give us the money. And upon proper presentation of this affidavit, the bank will release the money. It'll spare the heirs all the cost and expense, of going through a succession. It's really a good law, right? So, what motivations do heirs have to not falsify this information? What if I'm not an heir and I know somebody died and I slip in a false affidavit?
You probably get fraud charges, criminal charges?
Criminal penalty. Anybody who submits a false affidavit, they can go up to 6 months in jail, $500 fine, of course, restitution. The banks are released of liability. That's why this law goes. The banks are the ones with the money. The banks are completely and fully released of liability. It doesn't matter if it's a fraudulent affidavit or not. As long as it appears to be a valid affidavit, then the banks are released of liability.
So if you have a surviving spouse and some heirs, does the spouse get control over half of it?
Well, in that situation, there would be a usufruct if the spouse wished to advance that. If the spouse wanted to advance it, they could. If the spouse wishes to acknowledge that the other heirs are entitled to half, that would be fine too. But it would have to be presented in affidavit form. The good news is that no succession is needed. It's a good law, it's a good adjustment, and it makes life easy when there's not a lot of money in the bank.
That's good to know. I think the DMV has something like that too, where it's a car. You can just do a form. You don't have to do a full-blown succession.
That's right. You can do a DMV form, and it's really called Office of Motor Vehicles. It's Louisiana Department of Public Safety, Office of Motor Vehicles.
I stand corrected.
Yes, I know. I've learned that the hard way, by the way. But they actually have a form where you don't have to do a succession for a car. Similar process. So the bottom line, if it's a relatively small amount of money in the bank, you don't have to do a full succession if the decedent died intestate, if it's under $20,000. Other thing that is good to know is that you can go to the QR code right here on Law Talk and you can submit your legal questions, and Jonathan the Law Dog Fontenot or myself will be glad to take them on. So for the Law Dog, I'm Mark the Director Judson. We're thanking you for tuning in to another edition of Law Talk, a public service of the Southwest Louisiana Law Center and CBS Lake Charles.